Fall at Equestria the Chrysalis, Chapter 21, Part 2. I stepped out of the store and into the chilly morning air, all geared up and ready to go. My saddlebags rested a bit heavier, loaded with 4 days of food and water, plus half a case of spare rifle ammunition. My ammo pouch rested against my chest, the magazines all topped off, with a pair of grenades tucked in alongside them. My electronics were stashed in one bag and a small collection of explosives were stashed in the other. My medical box was once again serving its original purpose, holding a pair of healing potions safely inside of it, and my rifle with its new suppressor attached hung from the strap around my neck. It was an absurd abundance of equipment compared to what I was used to, especially when most of it was intended to kill ponies, but I found the weight comforting. Other than her new armor and the location of her pip buck, Starlight looked no different than when we had first met. She gave me an awkward smile, which I mirrored. We both sat on the store's porch waiting. Dusty was still inside with Emerald going over her equipment. My head was feeling a little better, though a headache still lingered at the edge of my perception, lurking like a shadow. The dull thump of heavy hooves and the clattering of metal on metal preceded Sickle's arrival. She emerged from the front door with a tight frown half hidden under her muzzle. It was hard to read her expression under her helmet, but I had the impression of her glaring out through those eye slits. She was walking past me when she halted, her head turning to me. "Whisper." My ears flicked back as I looked up at her. She jerked her head to the side, then turned and walked in that direction. The message was clear. I placed a hoof on Starlight's side.
"Wait here, I'll be right back."
She gave a worried look, but nodded, and I stood to trot off after Sickle. Falling in beside her, I asked.
"What did you— Shut up."
She rumbled. Her tone wasn't sharp or angry. If I had to describe it in a word, that word would be dark. My mouth snapped shut so quickly that you could hear my teeth click. We walked in silence until we reached a small dusty clearing, tucked in behind the town's wall and well away from where most ponies traveled. She came to a halt and sat with a crash of metal.
"Sit down."
I obeyed, sitting beside her. For almost a minute, we sat in silence, save for the soft clinking and scraping of her armor shifting with each breath. She sat, staring at the ground ahead of her. Under her helm's muzzle, she was still frowning, her teeth clenched as if to hold back anger. At that moment, the only thing that seemed more dangerous than sitting next to her was trying to leave. Then, she reached up. Her hoof caught the clasp at the side of her helm, undoing it with a soft click, and she shook the muzzle to hang against her neck. She returned to staring at the same point for a couple more seconds before speaking.
"You've been asking a lot of questions."
My ears flicked back nervously. It sounded like an accusation, especially with the hints of tension in her voice. I had no idea if she expected me to answer or remain silent, but I carefully offered a quiet and inoffensive reply.
"Yeah, I have."
I also silently tried to plan my escape if things went poorly. None of those plans were terribly optimistic. There was another pause of silence before the metal plates rattled and scraped a little louder. She drew in a deep breath, letting it out in something halfway between a sigh and a growl, then spoke again.
"My dad got sick when I was 14.
She said, and my ear shot up. Plans for escape and evasion were immediately shelved as I focused my faculties on the words that she said.
That was really bad. Couldn't even stand. Mom had me and my little sister watch over him while she went to town for medicine. Should have been a couple of days each way. Then Dad died a week later. We waited another week before we were sure Mom wasn't coming back. We were pretty much out of food, so we set out in the same direction Mom did, looking for any signs of life, or even some old place that we could scavenge from."
She huffed faintly.
"Sis only made it 4 days. We were both starving. We dug through a bunch of buildings, but none of them had shit in them. Then we went in one, and the floor broke under my fat ass. Fell into the basement with all the junk and shit down there. I was fine, just some scrapes and bruises. But Sis, she got a broken leg and sliced up her side on some nails or something. Just a couple of little cuts, but we couldn't get the bleeding to stop. I kept going. Found some ugly-looking plants to eat that only made me a little sick, but it was food. Managed to live off of that for a few more days. I don't know, maybe a week. Finally crushed some stupid spitting fly thing. Tasted like shit, but it was the first good meal I've had since leaving home. Anyway, a couple days later, I finally stumbled into some ponies with a nice walled-off fort."
She snorted.
"Yeah, except I was too happy to find ponies to notice all the spikes and skulls and shit. Walks right up to a fucking raider camp and said hi. Must have made their fucking day. So yeah, they grabbed me, all laughing and cheering over their luck. Bunch of them pinned me down, start arguing over who gets me first. Then that's when this one asshole shows up. He was pretty much the boss's second in command, but no pony liked him because he was the kind of asshole that always pulls rank to get what he wants. But, you know, the boss said he outranked them, so they had to let him have his first crack at the pony that they caught. So he fucked me."
She said. My ears pinned back, but otherwise I forced myself to remain silent and neutral.
I just went still, let him finish, and as soon as he pulls out, he's all grinning and boasting to every pony else, and that's when I kick him as hard as I fucking can. And yeah, I wasn't as big as I am now, and I was pretty light on food, but I was still big and strong. Cut him right with the edge of the hoof too, right in the junk. Tore off one of his balls and cut him open good. Blood all over the place.
Her lips curled back, baring her teeth.
He went down, and I got on top of him and just started beating the fuck out of him. And you know what? The other raiders hated his ass, so they were all laughing and cheering me on like it was some sort of show. I'd beaten him until he couldn't move before they finally decided that he'd had enough and grabbed me again. Except then, the real boss showed up and made him stop. He was a big fucker.
She lifted a hoof to thump against her chest.
About as big as me now. And him, he liked what he saw. Said some bullshit about beautiful rage or something. So you know what he did?
Her head turned to look at me. I nearly winced and gave a tiny shake of my head. She turned away again.
He offered me a place in his gang. I'd beat the shit out of one of his best ponies, so he thought I'd make a good replacement. Guess he saw potential in me or some shit. I get to be his, I don't know, apprentice or whatever the fuck you'd call it. Hell, he'd even offer to let me finish off that asshole that fucked me. And you know what? I was still so fucking pissed. I went for it.
She lifted a hoof, thumping it down into the dry dirt.
I kept hitting him until I crushed his skull to paste.
She let out a dry humorless chuckle.
Of course, a couple of those cunts whine that they didn't get a chance to fuck me. Well, the boss, yeah, he tells them that they can fuck me all they want. Except then, he points to the pony I'd just beaten to death and told them all that I might do that to them if I didn't like it. And I'm just sitting there all blood-spattered, panting and glaring back at those fuckers. And you know what I saw?
Her mouth slowly parted in a savage grin.
They were scared of me. Not like terrified or some shit, more like, I don't know, respect for how strong I was. That morning I'd been lost, alone, barely making it day to day, and now I had 20 fucking raiders around me, and they were all scared of me. I felt like I was the baddest fucking pony in the wastelands. Like nothing could fucking touch me anymore. I liked it. Except, you know, they still try to fucking rape me. So the next morning I walk down to the boss's roost, grab the first one of those dipshits I come across, pin him down by his neck, and fuck his little pea brain out. Right in front of every pony, give him a good show. Sure enough, one of the others try to get some. I give him one warning, and then I beat his ass until he can't walk. And you know, the boss is kind of pissed that I broke another one of his goons. Except he goes down and kicks the guy's ass himself for trying shit after he warned their asses about what would happen. So yeah, message delivered. No pony fucked with me.
She paused, her smile slowly fading away as she thought.
Went on my first raid, a week later? I don't know. Some dinky little caravan, only had 2 ponies. They killed one of them, grabbed the other. Some young stallion, kinda scrawny. Half of the gang started tearing through their cart, but the others decided to have fun with him. Beat the shit out of him, and then started fucking him.
She huffed faintly.
Well, a couple of times I thought maybe I should feel more, you know, sympathy or some shit. I'd almost been there, except I wasn't. I was stronger than those other raiders, so I came out on top. Except I wasn't just stronger than them, I was stronger than every pony. Every pony! And that scrawny little fuck toy was another reminder of that. I wasn't some helpless little bitch. As long as I had ponies like him squirming under my hoof, I was in charge. So I dived right in and helped him out. It was fun.
I sat silently, trying not to fidget or edge away as she described these horrible things. Even knowing that she had been a raider wasn't enough to prepare me for hearing her discussing those things so casually. And yet, as uncomfortable as I was over the topic itself, I listened intently. Every word that she said helped me understand her a little better, and maybe even raiders as a whole.
Pretty soon, I was looking to prove myself. Every time we went out on a raid, I looked for the meanest motherfucker out there and go head-on with them. Every time I'd come out on top. Got torn up pretty good a few times, but the boss made sure I got the best armor they could cobble together. Then sent me loose to tear shit up. Even started calling myself Sickle, cause it sounds more dangerous. Got into some chems during some dull stretch between raids. Getting drunk and fucking half of the camp was a good way to pass the time. Never had any problems getting rutted. Guess it ain't surprising. It was almost all stallions, and they were a horny bunch of cunts. Much of them, and just 4 mares before I showed up. And those 2 bitches didn't last long once we started butting heads. The stallions, though, once they got it through their thick heads that I was above them, we got along great. So long as I got my share of the chems, they could have everything else. And I was always up for a quick fuck. Every pony wanted to be in when I was leading a raider party. You ain't ever had a good rutting like a half-dozen blood-crazed raiders after a good hard fight.
She paused, her pleased smile slowly fading away before speaking again.
It was the boss that I really liked, though. He taught me how to fight, helped me grow strong, got me some good armor, all that shit. That helped a lot with the getting stronger part. He liked me too. Said it was because I was like him. Said I was the biggest, meanest cunt in his gang, just like him. Said a bunch of... what's the word?
She tapped her hoof on the ground a couple of times before saying,
Philosophical. Yeah, he liked his philosophical shit. He said I was better than all those other ponies because I wasn't scared of the wasteland. Because I'd run right out there and beat it into submission, while the other ponies tried to hide from it. Said a lot of other stuff too. I don't know, most of it was bullshit, but he liked me. And holy shit, the sex.
Her mouth split into a grin again.
He was the best fuck I'd ever had from a pony. Spot's the only one who ever matched him. I mean, we were big fucking ponies. If I went all out on any other pony, I'd just break him. Then yeah, sometimes that's fun and all, but shit. Sometimes you just want some pony who can give as good as they get. But with each other, we could go fucking wild. There were times that we'd walk away bruised and bleeding. Hell, first time I tried dash, we ended up breaking down the fucking wall.
She snickered, but after a few moments, her smile started to fade again. Before long, she was expressionless, staring once more at that same spot in the dirt.
Some raiders like collecting trophies,
she said, her voice quieter than before.
Usually some body parts. Ears, teeth, skulls. Him, he collected cutie marks.
She lifted a hoof, brandishing the blades welded to her leg armor.
He'd take his blades and cut them right out of their flank. Most of the time he'd do it when they were still alive and kicking. He said that he wanted them to know. Wanted them to know that he wasn't just taking their life. He was taking what made them. Like he was taking their soul. Said some bullshit about it making him stronger or showing that he was stronger, whatever. That philosophical shit again. And hell, he had a fuck ton of them before I'd even got there. And he just made some more over the years. Must have been a couple hundred, just like this giant pile of little colorful hides. Some of the others in the gang even pitched in, cutting off the cutie marks of their kills to give to him, like tribute, I guess. I never really paid much attention to it. I did it too, cause, you know, just why not? Made him happy and it was fun. But that's about all I cared about him. They were his thing, not mine. Once they went in a pile, I barely looked at them again. There were some that had been there for years and I never saw them. But sometimes I'd get really bored, run out of cams and stallions, and I'd need something to do. So there were a few times I just lazed around and hoofed through a bit of his collection. Sometimes I'd recognize the cutie mark, maybe from some pony I'd beaten down, maybe from a fight that he'd gotten into. A few came from fights that we'd both been in. Those were my favorite, mostly because they usually ended with us fucking. Then this one time I found another cutie mark that I remembered. It was years old by then, all tattered and faded and shit, but I could make it out. It was an ice cream cone on a faded pink coat.
She paused, taking a slow, deep breath before speaking again. Her voice was quiet, but hard to steal.
It was my mom's.
Her jaw was tight, her teeth clenched, and I could hear a faint shudder of her breath as her fury welled up. I remained as still and silent as possible, to avoid drawing any attention towards myself. I didn't even breathe. At that moment, as she seethed beside me, I was certain a single word or gesture could lead to a grisly death.
I hurt him,
she said in a low growl, her spiked hooves grinding into the dirt beneath them.
And it wasn't some pussy-ass slow shit I fucking let loose on him.
She lifted a hoof and stomped for emphasis.
He didn't even see it coming. I snapped off his horn, I broke his legs, and I beat him until my hooves hurt.
Her armor rattled with the angry shudder of her body.
A couple of the others came in to see what was going on, and I threw their fucking heads out as a warning to the others, and then I got back to work on him. But I didn't just kill him.
She snorted, lips peeling back in an angry sneer.
No, I wanted to hurt him. And you know, he was always going on about being stronger, about taking everything from a pony. All that philosophical shit. And the one thing that he valued the most? His reputation, his name. He wanted to be the biggest, baddest, scariest motherfucker in the world. Some king of the raiders that everyone in the wasteland would know and fear. He talked about it like it was some kind of fucking immortality. About how he'd still be there even after he was dead. And he really thought that he could do it too.
Thankfully, Starlight wasn't there, or else she probably would have said something snarky, and who knows what the hell would have happened then. Or maybe she would have been intimidated by it and not said anything, but still, at least she doesn't have to endure that very interesting story. Man, poor Sickle. Anyways, let's get on to our legendary donators. Top donators are 630, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, and Only One Thing. Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rollins, CrazyClaire557, Stu Hex, Will, Omicron Lyrae, Chris, Twinkie, Dospo, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, RuneScythe9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Prickett, Drake Lovedragon, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, LineGod12, Sorcerer Constantine, Hudzaza, Conver, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.